What if I told you there might be a way to kind of like turn back the clock on the opioid crisis?
Oh, that's a bold statement.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But what if there was a drug out there that could give us powerful pain relief, but without the whole scary addiction thing?
Well, that would certainly be a game changer.
No kidding. And get this, it might actually be happening. There's this new drug. It's called Suzetrigine. And get this, it's actually under FDA review right now.
I've heard whispers about this one.
Yeah, it's creating quite a buzz. And today, we're going to dive deep into a report all about it from ICER, the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review.
Okay.
And they're pretty much the mythbusters of new medications,
Yeah.
Independent, nonprofit, all about analyzing the value of new drugs.
Sounds like a pretty reliable source.
Oh, yeah, they're top-notch. And, if you're at all interested in the future of pain management, buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride.
I'm ready.
Okay, so first things first, we got to set the stage a bit. Acute pain, that sunny, sharp kind you get after an injury or surgery, it's a big problem.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It affects over 80 million people in the U.S. every year. That's a huge number. And right now, what are we doing about it? Opioids, NSAIDs, things like that.
Yeah. And we all know the issues with those.
Exactly. The opioid crisis is a massive problem. Over 108,000 overdose deaths just in 2022 in the U.S. alone.
That's a staggering number.
It is. And then there's the cost, right? Opioid use disorder is a huge burden on our healthcare system. It's not sustainable. We need something better.
Definitely a safer and hopefully more effective solution would be ideal.
Well, that's where Suzetrigine comes in, and it's really fascinating.
How so?
It's different from opioids. Not about masking the pain. It's about actually stopping it at the source.
Interesting. How does it do that?
So Suzetrigine, it targets this specific sodium channel called NaV1.8.
Okay, and what's so special about this channel?
Well, it plays a crucial role in transmitting pain signals. So Suzetrigine blocks those signals. It's like cutting the wires, basically.
So it's a much more targeted approach compared to opioids.
Exactly. And the early studies, they suggest it can be really effective. Real pain relief, maybe even fewer side effects than opioids, and the big one, no addiction risk.
That's promising. But what does ICER say? Did they find evidence to support all that?
Well, they dug into two big phase 3 clinical trials. These trials focused on folks recovering from two procedures. One's known to cause a lot of pain afterwards, bunionectomy and abdominoplasty.
Ah, the tummy tuck.
That's the one. So in both trials, they compared Suzetrigine to a placebo and, wait for it, a common opioid, hydrocodone acetaminophen. You might know it as Vicodin.
Okay, so head-to-head with the standard treatment, what happened?
Suzetrigine consistently beat the placebo. Pain reduction was faster, and patients reported feeling much better.
Okay, that's encouraging, but what about compared to the opioid? Was it as effective?
That's where it gets a bit trickier. The trial showed Suzetrigine is safe as placebo and actually safer than the opioid. But comparing efficacy, well, there are some things to consider.
What do you mean?
Well, in the real world, doctors can adjust opioid doses, depending on the patient and their pain. In a trial, they use fixed doses, so it's tough to compare directly.
Ah, I see. So it's not a perfect apples-to-apples comparison.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But still, even with that, Suzetrigine showed it could really tackle pain. That's huge. And there's another trial happening now looking at Suzetrigine across a bunch of different pain conditions over a longer period, like 2 weeks.
So more to come on that front. But even now, the early signs are pretty good. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. New drugs, they're usually expensive. What does ICER say about the cost of Suzetrigine?
This might surprise you, but their analysis suggests it might actually be cheaper than using opioids.
Wait, cheaper? How is that possible?
It all comes down to the long-term costs of opioid use disorder. Think about it. Healthcare expenses, lost productivity, even the justice system gets involved. Those costs add up fast. If Suzetrigine can help prevent even a small number of those cases, we're talking serious savings.
That's a really good point. We're not just talking about individual patients here. We're talking about a whole societal impact.
Exactly. This isn't just about treating pain. It's about preventing a much bigger problem.
It's a preventative approach, which is really promising.
Absolutely. But, we can't get too excited just yet. The final cost of the drug, how widely it's used, all that will play a role.
Of course, it's still early days, but the potential is definitely there.
No doubt about it. So we've covered a lot of ground here. The basics of Suzetrigine, how well it works, even the potential cost savings. But there's more to this story.
What else is there?
Well, ICER also pointed out some fascinating benefits of Suzetrigine that go beyond just individual health. They call them societal benefits.
Societal benefits. Interesting. Like what?
Well, think about it. If suzetrigine is really good at managing acute pain and has a lower risk of addiction, that could have a huge ripple effect.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. Less addiction means less burden on families, communities, even the healthcare system as a whole.
Exactly. It's like a chain reaction.
Yeah.
You treat the acute pain, and you might be preventing chronic pain, addiction, even overdoses down the line.
It's a domino effect, so the benefits extend far beyond just the person taking the medication.
Precisely. But of course, there's still some nuances to those clinical trials that we should talk about.
Oh, right. You mentioned there were some details we should unpack.
Yeah, let's break down what happened in each trial and see what we can learn.
Sounds good. Let's start with the bunionectomy one. What did they find there?
Okay, so in that trial, patients got different doses of suzetrigine, the opioid, or a placebo. And guess what? Even at the lowest dose, suzetrigine was way better at relieving pain than the placebo.
Wow, even at the lowest dose, that's a strong indicator that the drug is effective.
It is. And it wasn't just about how much pain relief it provided, it was also about how quickly it kicked in. Suzetrigine worked faster than the other options.
That makes sense. When you're in pain, you want relief fast. Nobody wants to wait around for hours.
Right. And this is where we circle back to that whole real-world dosing thing with opioids.
Yes, because doctors can adjust those doses as needed, whereas in the trial, they used fixed amounts.
Exactly. So while the results are promising, it's not a perfect comparison. We need more research to see how suzetrigine stacks up in a real-world setting, where dosing can be more flexible.
Okay, I understand that. But even with that caveat, the fact that suzetrigine showed such strong pain relief in the trial is pretty impressive.
It is. And remember, the safety profile was similar to the placebo. Meanwhile, the opioid, more side effects.
Right, which highlights one of the potential big wins here. Effective pain relief without all the baggage that comes with opioids.
Exactly. But of course, we need more research to understand the long-term safety of suzetrigine. We don't want to jump the gun.
Absolutely. Cautious optimism is key here.
For sure. Okay, so what about the second trial? The one with the abdominoplasty patients. How did that one go?
Well, it was pretty much a mirror image of the bunionectomy trial. Suzetrigine outperformed the placebo in terms of pain relief.
So, consistent results across different types of surgeries. That strengthens the evidence for its effectiveness.
Definitely. And again, the safety profile was favorable compared to the opioid.
It's a pattern we're seeing here.
Yeah.
But again, that caveat about the fixed doses in the trial versus real-world practice applies.
Right. But even so, the potential of suzetrigine is pretty exciting, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about a drug that shows real promise in managing acute pain, appears to be safe, and might even save money in the long run. What's not to like?
It's definitely an intriguing prospect, but like with any new drug, we need more research to get the full picture.
Agreed. But for now, I think it's safe to say that suzetrigine is a drug worth watching. It could be a game changer in how we fight the opioid crisis and a beacon of hope for those dealing with acute pain.
And on that cliffhanger, we'll take a break. But don't worry, we'll be back to tackle the ethical and economic questions surrounding suzetrigine. Because even if it's a wonder drug, there are some complex issues we can't ignore.
Exactly. Join us next time as we dive deeper into those issues and explore what suzetrigine could mean for the future of pain management. All right, so we're back. And, we left off talking about all the amazing potential of suzetrigine, right? It really could change everything about pain management as we know it.
It's definitely a game changer.
But there's another side to all of this. We got to talk about the ethics and the economics of it all, It gets complicated.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just about whether a drug is safe and effective. It's about how it affects everything else, too.
Exactly. Like, how do we even measure the value of something like this when it goes beyond just treating one person's pain?
That's a big question, and it's something ICER is really grappling with in their report.
So traditionally, drug approvals have focused on safety and efficacy, right? Does it work? Is it safe for the patient?
Right. But with suzetrigine, it's different. It has the potential to impact the whole opioid crisis, not just one person's pain.
Exactly. Think about it. If this drug can help prevent even a few cases of opioid addiction, that has a ripple effect, right?
Absolutely. Less addiction means fewer overdoses, less strain on healthcare resources. It even affects families and communities.
It's a domino effect. So how do we factor those societal benefits into the equation?
That's the million-dollar question. How do you put a price tag on preventing addiction or saving a life?
It's a tough one, right? But just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
I completely agree. We need new ways of evaluating drugs, frameworks that take into account not just the individual patient, but the wider societal impact.
A shift in perspective, right? Like looking at the big picture.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that healthcare decisions affect everyone, not just the person taking the medication.
And that raises some interesting questions about who's responsible for all of this. What role should the government play? What about drug companies? Even patients themselves have a role, right?
It's a shared responsibility, no doubt. We need open discussions, collaboration, and a willingness to change the way we think about things.
We can't keep doing things the same way and expect different results.
Exactly. We need to be proactive and consider the long-term consequences of our actions.
Couldn't agree more. And then there's the issue of equity. We can't talk about a potentially life-changing drug without talking about access.
Absolutely. We need to make sure Suzetrigine is available to everyone who needs it, not just those who can afford it.
Especially those communities that have been hit hardest by the opioid crisis.
Exactly. They're the ones who stand to benefit the most from a new, safer alternative.
But we know that in the real world, access to healthcare isn't always equal.
There are definitely barriers like poverty, lack of insurance, and even transportation can be a problem.
So it's not enough to just say everyone should have access. We need to address those barriers.
That means policies that make the drug affordable, education to raise awareness, and outreach programs to make sure it reaches those underserved communities.
It's a big task, but we have to try.
I agree. And I think there's reason for optimism. We're at a turning point in how we approach pain management, and Suzetrigine is a big part of that.
It's like a symbol of hope, right? A sign that we can overcome even the biggest challenges if we work together.
It's about finding solutions that benefit everyone, not just a select few.
It's about changing the conversation, shifting our focus from just treating symptoms to preventing the problem in the first place.
And recognizing that we're all connected, that our individual health is tied to the well-being of our communities.
That's a powerful thought. So here's a question for our listeners to consider. If Suzetrigine is really as transformative as it seems, how can we ensure that everyone has access to it?
It's a question worth pondering. It's about finding solutions that are not just effective, but also fair and equitable.
It's about building a future where everyone has the opportunity to live a life free from the pain and suffering caused by opioid addiction.
And that's a future worth fighting for. Join us for our final segment as we wrap up our deep dive and explore what this all means for the future of pain management.
All right, so we're back and ready to kind of wrap things up here. Bring our deep dive into Suzetrigine to a close. We've covered a lot of ground. Its potential, the trial results, the costs, even the ethics of it all.
It's been a pretty comprehensive look.
It has. But there's one more thing we got to talk about, the big picture. What does Suzetrigine actually mean for, the future of pain management? That's the big question.
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it? And it's an exciting question, I think. Suzetrigine, it's not just another drug, It's more like a catalyst. It could shift the whole paradigm.
Yeah, it's like, what if we could actually prevent the problem of opioid addiction instead of just reacting to it after it's already happened?
Exactly. It's a proactive approach rather than a reactive one.
And if Suzetrigine really works the way it seems to, that could change everything about how we handle pain after surgery or an injury.
For sure. It could revolutionize the way doctors approach pain management.
Think about it. What if doctors had a whole range of non-opioid options to choose from? They could tailor the treatment to each patient's individual needs,
Personalized pain management, that's the dream. Fewer side effects, better outcomes for patients, and way less reliance on opioids overall.
It would be a huge win, real
Right.
step forward in the fight against the opioid crisis.
Absolutely. But the thing is, Suzetrigine, it's just the beginning. It's sparked a whole wave of research into new non-opioid painkillers.
Like opening up a whole new world of possibility.
Exactly. Scientists are looking at different pain pathways, different ways to target pain without the risk of addiction.
The Suzetrigine is like the first domino to fall, It's leading the way for a whole new generation of pain medications.
And imagine, in the future, maybe we'll have a whole toolbox full of non-addictive options, each one tailored to a specific type of pain.
Wow, that would be incredible. And, it's not just about new drugs, right? There's a lot of exciting research happening around non-drug approaches to pain management, too.
Right. Things like acupuncture, massage therapy, even virtual reality is showing some promise.
It's like we're finally starting to understand that pain is complex. It's not just a physical thing. It's connected to our emotions, our experiences.
It's a holistic view of pain management. And it's about giving patients more options, more control over their own pain relief.
Empowering them to be active participants in their own healing.
Exactly. Because what works for one person might not work for another. It's about finding the right approach for each individual.
It's about collaboration, right?
Yeah.
Patients and doctors working together to find the best, safest solution.
That's the future, a partnership between patient and doctor working together to achieve the best possible outcome.
I love that. It's a hopeful vision for the future of pain management. But as we wrap up here, it's important to remember that we've only just scratched the surface, right?
For sure. There's still so much we don't know about pain, how it works, how to treat it effectively.
And that's why ongoing research is so critical. We need to keep investing in this, keep exploring new approaches, keep asking questions.
It's an investment in the future, in a world where pain doesn't have to rule people's lives.
And that's a world worth fighting for, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a world where everyone has the opportunity to live a full, vibrant life, free from the limitations of pain.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Mm.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into Suzetrigine. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. It's been a fascinating one.
It has been, and we hope you'll continue to explore this topic, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions.
Because the future of pain management, well, it's in our hands. So let's make it a good one.